What are community interactions? A Petchakusha by Renee, Maddie, and Marcus. Community interactions are the symbiosis of two species living closely together in an ecosystem. Organisms that live together in communities have changed and adjusted to one another continually over millions of years.
Mutualism is a symbiotic relationship in which both species benefit from each other. There are two different types of mutualistic relationships: facultative mutualism and obligate mutualism.
Obligate mutualism is a condition in which mutualistic relationships with one species is essential for another species to survive. Ants and acacia trees have an obligate mutualistic relationships. The tree provides food for the ants, and the ants in return give the trees protection. Without this relationship, both species would die.
Facultative mutualism is a condition in which one or both species in a mutualistic relationship may survive in the absence of the other partner.
Pilot and remora fish have this relationship with sharks. The fish eat the parasites on the shark's skin and in return get safety and transportation. The relationship is not crucial to the shark's survival but removes parasites on their skin.
A second symbiotic relationship to look at is parasitism, where one species benefits from the relationship but the other is harmed. Parasitism is often viewed as a form of predation, but the prey doesn't always necessarily die from this. Two types of parasitism are endoparasites and ectoparasites.
An endoparasite has a type of parasitic relationship where it lives inside of its host. An example of an endoparasite would be a tapeworm that lives inside of the flesh of a human being. Endoparasites commonly live on internal organs or tissues of their hosts. An ectoparasite is a type of parasite that has a relationship where it lives on the outside of its host. An example of an ectoparasite would be a flea that's living in the hair of a dog. Ectocytes commonly feed on blood. Most of the time, they spend their entire life cycle on their hosts.
Another symbiotic relationship in which neither species benefits from is called competition. Niches are realized because of limited resources, predation, and diseases. Because of the high demand and limited supply, both species are harmed. Because similar species have a lot of competition for resources, natural selection often favors resource partitioning. This is when species subdivide the niche to avoid direct competition with one another.
Darwin observed resource partitioning with finches developing different-sized beaks in order to eat different-sized seeds.
The competitive exclusion principle, or Gauss's law, explains the results of competition by stating that two species with identical niches cannot coexist indefinitely. Therefore, the competition for limited resources causes a loss of one of the competing species.
Another type of community interaction that has been identified by biologists and ecologists is amensalism. Amensalism is any association between organisms of different species in which one is harmed or destroyed while the other remains unaffected and does not have any benefit or harm.
One example of an amensalistic relationship is allelopathy, which is defined by the process of one organism releasing a biochemical to inhibit germination, growth, survival, and reproduction of another organism. Allelopathy occurs within plants, algae, bacteria, coral, and fungi.
Here's another good example of amensalism. Redwood trees falling to the ocean become floating battering rams during storms, killing large numbers of mussels and intertidal organisms. This negatively affects only intertidal organisms, while the trees remain unaffected due to death.
Commensalism is a community interaction in which one species benefits while the other species is neither harmed or benefits from the relationship. The species that benefits often obtains nutrients, housing, protection, or transportation from the other species.
Barnacles attach themselves to the bodies of whales during barnacles' free-swimming larvae stage. This relationship is an example of commensalism because the barnacles have a place to settle and filter food from the passing water, while the whales do not seem to suffer any negative consequences from their presence.
There are three types of commensalistic relationships: foracy, inquilinism, and metabiosis. Foracy occurs when one animal attaches to another for transportation. Inquilinism occurs when one organism uses a second for housing. Metabiosis occurs when a second organism uses something the first created.
Mutualism is a community relationship between two organisms that intermingle but do not affect each other in any way. It describes interactions where the overall well-being of one species has absolutely no effect whatsoever on that of the other, and vice versa.
A bacterian camel and a long-tailed tadpole shrimp, both living in the Gobi Desert, is a good example of a neutralistic relationship. This is because neither species affects the other, yet they still interact when the camel comes to drink at the body of water.
Another example of mutualism is the relationship between cacti and a tarantula in the desert. Although these two organisms interact, neither of their reproductive fitnesses is affected, and therefore they have a mutualistic relationship.
Community interactions can be used to describe the symbiotic relationships between many different species. Together, interacting species can form ecosystems where organisms work together to maintain diversity. Community interactions are the basis of all ecosystems and the relationships of plants, animals, fungi, protists, and eukaryotes living together.